Look how the stars turn on. Look how the stars turn on. When I hold you close. When I hold you close. When I hold you close. The stars turn on.
Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 27 of The Press Box, in association with the unit. So in this show, we are going to be reflecting back on the 1-0 defeat to Shelbourne on Friday night and looking ahead to the return of Stephen Kenny to Oriel Park this Thursday, when St. Pat's come to town for a rearranged fixture that Dundalk need to produce the goods in, which is a lot of games now these days, sadly. While Thursday's game is going to be massive in terms of avoiding the drop, undoubtedly the biggest news this week came with James's article in the Argus indicating that Brian Ainscough is considering his position as owner just over 9 months since taking the reins at Oriel Park. So I suppose that's the only place we can start. I know we were talking about it earlier. I'll literally let you fire on and what you want to discuss or not discuss. But an interesting article that when you put us in League of Ireland circles where we are results wise, this just adds to the absolute circus that seems to be Dundalk FC on and off the field, which is very sad, frustrating. But I suppose you probably know more about it, so I'll let you kind of fire on from here.
Yeah, where do you start with it? I really don't know what's more to say about it. I suppose for those who haven't read it, he kind of did summarise it there, that effectively he's considering his position, and the club is more or less available. I did reach out to Brian when I sort of heard the reports, and he kind of said he wasn't in a position to comment right now, but hopefully have news soon. So needless to say, if it was something outlandish you were putting to him, like he's signing Lionel Messi, I'm sure he'd just scoff at it straight away. So when you fail to refute something, there's obviously something in it. I do believe there's something in it. In some respects, I can't blame him. We could get into the background of it or whatever. Like maybe due diligence wasn't wonderful and whatever. I think there's been a endless amount of problems, maybe unforeseen as well. But it's a massive headache. I always think you need to have a bit of a screw loose to get into football ownership, because there's, particularly in League of Ireland, there's always going to be more sort of difficult days than good ones. But from a Dundalk perspective, it's hard to know what way to make of it, because I mean, this, as I wrote, would be the 5th different ownerships in 9 seasons. It's an awful lot of change. The constant chopping and changing can't do any good for stability. And then there is obvious legacy issues in terms of the stadium, the ground, the pitch and floodlights both need to be done up for next year, presuming we're going to be in the Premier Division, which is maybe a separate argument. And like there's a debt there as well, which, a reference in the article, I believe the books up until the end of November 2023 will show, we're in the red somewhere to the region of 1.2 million, thereabouts. Might be just shy of that, but that's a scary sum that, and I saw one comment earlier on social basically saying he's leaving us with that debt. Just want to clarify, that's a debt that came from the previous regime. So it's very hard to see a situation. I'm obviously not privy to the books day to day, but it's very hard to see a situation where the Dundalk turned a profit in 2024. So you can safely add to that. I said to someone earlier, like even 1.5 million would be probably a very, very good situation to be in terms of what the club owes right now. So the numbers are sort of astronomical in League of Ireland terms, and it's sad, really. I'm not putting the finger of blame necessarily on anyone here, but it is sad when you think the success we had. Like, ironically, we talk about later, Stephen Kenny coming back, but the success, the money taken in those years, it's only less than 4 years ago that we were sadly unable to go due to COVID, but we were playing the likes of Arsenal in the Emirates Stadium, and there's nothing, bar some really good memories from on the field. And some people did very well out of it, financially, and good luck to them. But there's literally nothing to show from it from an Dundalk perspective. We don't have as much as a new seat in the ground, or a revamped bar, or maybe you can argue that the YDC was done up a little bit in terms of the players' gym, but again, that's not something that the average supporter gets to see day to day. So it's just a sad predicament it's in, and look, you just have to worry about where it potentially goes. If, like, I've led to believe he has open talks with people, but if that doesn't come to fruition, what then? Does he walk away? Does he hang on? There's a lot of questions to be answered from it, basically.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because from his point of view, okay, so he comes in, and it was a rush job, as we said. There was no due diligence. I don't have any sympathy for that. Again, I run a very, very, very small business in comparison to what his normal maybe business is, along with Oriel Park. But you don't get involved in anything without having some sort of due diligence. You don't buy things on handshakes. Them days are over. So the 1 million debt, that's just on him. That's on him for not being good in business, for this purchase. And then, having listened to him, and he did a Q&A, and he's talking about, like, he wants to be here for 10 years. He has all these plans. And one of the things that's disappointing, that if he does just get out, is that he actually never really did. Now, we did actually meet him at the golf thing, actually, and again, he was kind of very positive, very nice to talk to people and stuff. But, like, he hasn't communicated with people. He hasn't shown plans and stuff. And also, by the way, so again, I know you were chatting to him in different things, whether it was debt and stuff like that. Come out and say that. Come out and say this is what the problem is. We're in now 1.2 million debt. It is a legacy debt. I potentially didn't do my due diligence, so we're going to be a bit behind in some plans. However, here's a plan that we are going to do. So we need to raise this money to do this. We're going to get grants to do this. We're in debt here. We're trying to raise money, and this is our plan for 3 years, for 5 years, for 10 years. He referenced 10 years in one of his articles, or interviews anyway, in his Q&A. I never once seen any plans for anything. The sports capital grants, again, you hear lots of different things about, even the guys that were doing it actually genuinely putting plans together for something, and he turned down. Now, that's what I heard. That could be nonsense as well. So maybe even some of the guys were trying to actually do things, and he kind of put the brakes on some things. Now, that, again, you hear a lot of things, so these are all just things that you hear, but there's kind of never.
Well, just to clarify with that. So I do believe we are in for a sports capital grant to do what would certainly help towards the pitch and the floodlights. We're awaiting word on that. I think the one you're referring to is the large scale sports infrastructure fund, which we didn't apply for.
Yeah.
And I believe, again, look, I've been trying to maybe get Brian. I don't think it's something you can do over a phone. Ideally, I was hoping to sit down, and when he was here, I tried to make it happen the last time. It didn't happen for whatever reason. Look, maybe we will hear from him this in time, even if it's a goodbye article. I don't know. I haven't gone that far or whatever. But in relation to the large scale sports infrastructure one, I do believe it's the debt that's the big critical factor there where you need, you need some funds in place to make these things happen. And look, open to clarity on that, but I just wanted, because the two are different. You mentioned sports capital.
Yeah, and that's fair. But
Have
so
applied for,
again,
and I don't want to get into too much hearsay because look, I'm not
absolutely.
saying either side's right or wrong, but just people have a
Okay,
right to
but
give their own case across.
absolutely. But what I'm saying is that if people are mixing things up, it is because there has been a lack of communication. It is because there hasn't been another Q&A or something that says, listen, this is what we're at. But I think one of the big mistakes that he did make is genuine communication. Like every man and his dog knows about this legacy debt now. So we did have one. So come out and say it. That's the point I'm making. You come out and say it, and people get behind him and say, Jesus, we're in the red here. We need to do. People will get behind things. Like there is other events, I have to say. Like, again, there was 2-2 at the Shelbourne game. So it's not that like everything's fallen off a cliff here. Like, I mean, it's probably still steady attendance wise to an extent. To an extent. It's poor, but to an extent. It's not, you're not 500 people or something like that. So like, and it's also hard to motivate people to come watch Dart every week, to be fair. So like it's hard when people are losing and stuff. So I completely get that. But like he just needed to come out. And again, maybe he'll still be here next year, but if he is, then he needs to genuinely get better with communication and letting people know. Because if he comes out and says, this is the issues, we've X amount of debt, these are the 3 years, 5 years, 10-year plan, and this is how we want to do it and what we want to do, people will get behind that. But he just never did it. And it's just the same old story every year. New owner, this, and we all expect different, and nothing's happened. As I said, we're now in September, and what's new? And again, we're talking about like this is flying around. Everyone's talking about, and some of my mates and other people I talk to in Oriel, like people are like, oh, who cares now? We're a joke. We're a circus. It's the same shit every week, every year.
You have to care because it's the future. Like, listen,
we do care, but like at some stage, the club and people that own it need to start pulling the wool over people's eyes here, and they need to fucking stand up and show some leadership and show some direction for the club. It's not all about the fans. The fans are putting enough money into this with buying this merchandise, with buying the season tickets, with buying tickets, with businesses trying to put money in with little sponsorship things and all that. And they're not getting that back in return in the sense of, because the people at the top obviously aren't showing great leadership with regards showing people this desire, showing people the plans of where they're going to try take this club. So it has to work in both ways. Like it's not fair that like every owner that seems to come in for the last few years has just been absolute radio silence, that they won't come out and answer things and just show people plans. People deserve the dream, the fucking hope and reality of getting this new stadium, of getting a proper academy coaches, developing young players that we can potentially sell on and make money out of. At this stage, we are a circus. We are a laughing stock. And there's some people that do need to actually take responsibility for this. But it also can be fixed with people sitting down, putting plans together, and being open and transparent with the fans and seeing if there's other people that can get involved and help get other things done and genuinely move the club forward. But at this stage now, people that are saying it is a circus, it is, and they are sick of it, and they're right to say that. And I think we as fans now deserve to not be sitting in staring relegation in the face, worrying that we're going to an amateur side because our owner wants out and we'll have no money for players next year. Our stadium's still a kip and there's no plans when you look at our next neighbours who are potentially going down as well, but yet they have long-term future plans, whereas we are still in the same thing, and it's the same sort of stadium, the same sort of issues that we have all the time, and it's just not good enough. And I completely get with most people that I'm talking to that are just very disillusioned with the whole thing now.
Yeah, look, and they're very right to be. And look, I don't want to get into defensive mode here, but the problem didn't start with Brian Ainscough. The problem started, like, there's been no due diligence for multiple owners now. Like, I think Peak Six, who, finances wasn't a problem. They came in here with ideas. Not saying all those ideas were bad, but they didn't understand certain things that they just presumed certain elements that the presumptions were wrong, let's say. their issue wasn't with finance. You go through to the previous owners, you know, I think the Stat Sports boys. I've no doubt when they got in, they were well intentioned, but they quickly realised the bit off more they can chew. And there's probably a little bit about that with Brian as well. Now, did he do his due diligence right? I think, you know, and it's probably something he needs to be asked if and when he does speak. But I think outside looking in, you could say probably not. And look, I have some sympathy. I get what you're saying about a small business owner. Like if I'm buying, I don't know, the
You're
local
buying a
restaurant in
car.
town.
If you're buying a car, you do a check on the car.
Yeah, let me finish my point. And I'm not saying it's right business wise, but if you're buying, I don't know, the Claremont tomorrow and you want to run it, like ultimately you might want the keys tomorrow. But if you can't get the keys till the 1st of November, it's not that detrimental, and it will still be run as a going concern. So the existing owners will still buy kegs and bottles of wine and steak and everything else that they sell, and they'll keep taking bookings and they'll keep doing that. We were in a situation last year, towards the end of last year, where we weren't signing players, we weren't re-signing players, and we risked getting left behind. And I'm not saying that condones the rush, but football is a bit different where if you're being left behind, you and listen, only no one knows what went on in the conversations between the previous owners and Brian, but there was an element of taking, you know, it at face value. Look, I need to get in here. I need to do deals. And I think for that reason, you know, if it was a normal business, I think, you know, right, if the deal didn't go through to the new year, what about it? The dog didn't have that luxury. And listen, I'm not saying it's right. It hasn't worked out business-wise for us, clearly. But as a result of all that, and the knock-on effect is there's been so much probably firefighting as well. Like, I'm led to believe there was sort of, and maybe they didn't go public on these, but I'm led to believe there was sort of plans in place for the YDC. I'm led to believe there was positive talks with the council. Now, Louth County Council is not a rich, you know, we're not South Dublin County Council. They probably don't have the funds to go and build a stadium in the way that South Dublin County Council did, etc. But at least having good relationships there. And I'm not saying there wasn't before, but obviously new owner comes in, you have to build fresh links and all that. And I believe relations were good there. So, you know, there has been little positives, but it doesn't change the fact, I suppose, that probably bit off more than he could chew. Probably feels a little disillusioned by a number of matters. I know the recent postponement and look, it's minor in the grand scheme of things, but when you're kind of pissed off with things, sometimes something's just the straw that beats the camel's back, or breaks the camel's back, sorry. And that sort of really, really pissed him off. And look, you can't get away from that level of debt. I don't, rightly or wrongly, and maybe he should have known, whatever. I don't think he knew it was to the extent it was. That's probably on him to have known that. 100%, I agree with you. But yeah, like you're probably hamstrung from the get-go then when you do realise this is what I'm dealing with, and how do you turn that around while trying to run a club? And let's be honest, despite all that, I don't think anyone sort of envisaged us being where we were at the start of the year, like in terms of league position. Like we weren't factored in. Like no one thought Dundalk were going to be maybe in a relegation battle. No one thought Dundalk were going to be bottom of the table. You look at the squad, I think we've used something like 36 players in the league this season. Like it hasn't been, you could get into debates over the quality of some of them or whatever. That's fine. But, you know, it's not the owner signing players. So maybe other people need to take responsibility for signing players who weren't up to it or whatever. But bottom line, you know, that doesn't help the mood around the place either when you are in that position. Because look, we're only doing a podcast, but it is hard to get up for this every week. And you're like, obviously the story only came out today, but I think we were talking on Saturday morning or something and saying, well, what do we say again? Like, you know what, like, you know, and it's hard because, like, and look, we will talk about it eventually, but the match, I did think there was some good bits in it, but like ultimately it's the same old story. you give away a bad goal, you don't take your chances, and you lose. And yeah, look, it's just been a disaster of a year. It's probably been a disaster of a few years, to be fair. How we've got to this, I've taken a bit of flack, and look, I'm big and ugly enough to take it or whatever over the years for different comments on here, and it's for this very reason. I think it's the week after next is the anniversary of the Galway game, and I said the way we were going, we were heading towards a relegation battle, and I think I said within 2 or 3 seasons. I didn't envisage it just quickly, but I was very worried about the way the finances were going, about how we weren't doing anything to sort of bring money in, raise money, run the club in some sort of way of like, look, it's very hard for any League of Ireland club to make money. But if I said to you, and you're a business owner, you're going to lose €1,000 a week, or you're going to lose 100 a week, you'd prefer to lose 100 a week. Obviously, you'd prefer not to lose anything, but if you're going to lose something, minimize as much you can and try and build on your potential. We haven't done that for years. We've absolutely, and it goes back to ironically, again, Stephen Kenny coming in this week. Brilliant times, brilliant memories. Special time to be around the club, but like we did nothing to sort of, like, when Sligo had their heyday, and maybe they had to take a step back competitively, but they built the showgrounds out of it. They built a club. They built what they do in terms of, I see Benny the Bulls on the go again, and their draw coming up, which I think ironically is the night of the Dundalk game on the 21st September. So like what they do to keep that club going, to keep them competitive, it's admirable. And like, again, with all due respect to Sligo, we're a bigger town, we're a bigger population base, we're like, even economically, it's a richer area. And yet nothing has been done to harness that. Nothing has been done to harness that. And I don't know, every so often people come in, and they're very well intentioned. I'm not having a go here, but every so often someone comes along and let's make a go of this, and let's try and get people together, and let's do this, let's do that. And ultimately nothing comes of it. And I don't know, we've opened ourselves to this a little bit as well. I know it's not the supporters' fault, in where the club goes, but like, it does need a strong supporter presence as well, and we've lacked that for a very, very, very long time.
In the sense of raising money or attendances?
Well, in raising money, like, we don't have like, like, we don't have big fundraisers. We don't have things that will, listen, I'm not like, no fundraiser is going to make you a fortune. Like the money that's been allowed to build up is almost criminal. But like, yeah, I just think if we had been running it as a club rather than a team for the best part of a decade, and look, governments do it, and listen, I know governments will take flack, but there's a reason there's rainy day funds. There's a reason there's, these pots put away. It's kind of like a pension. I pay into a pension. I don't know if I'll ever see it. Hopefully, but like, there's no thought of, right, ring fence this or ring fence that. Everything's to today, to now, and look, it needs strong leadership to do that, because you even take about our recent debates, where, like, is there a Dundalk fan out there that hasn't begged for a striker? And sometimes it's the hard decision to say, do you know what? And maybe we're going to forgo the striker, but that money's going into something else that's going to be to the long-term greater good, And
I
look,
think that people would accept that. Like, like, whether we go down to the first division, whether we actually say, by the way, we're going to potentially reduce playing staff, like, standards, let's be honest, in regarding the guys we bring in, probably couldn't be worse, but like, we're going to really bring up our 19s, give them actual contracts, I'm going to build. But what we are going to do with that money instead is, as you say, put it towards doing X, Y, and Z. And I actually think that people at this stage are on their wits' ends with the lack of vision from any previous owner. And I go back 10 years, yeah, you know, like it makes no odds. There was genuinely no off the pitch goals or ambition. And well, whether there
No,
was goals or ambition, nothing happened. That's all. So there was no results that came out of it. Whereas, yes, absolutely, we had amazing days on the pitch, great days that we'll all remember. But ultimately, not that they mean nothing because but like what I mean is we've nothing to show in any way, and that's really sad. Like that's really sad. Like, and somebody has to take responsibility for that at some stage. But as I said, hopefully
but no
you'll.
one's no one's going to take responsibility. But like ultimately, like again, been warning about this, and sometimes you're seen as negative, a hammer in the club or whatever. But we stood by for so long.
Yeah.
We stood by for so long and let uh, some of the stories would scare you, like if you knew them, like in terms of the way the finances and things were happening. And like I take no pleasure in reporting, and listen, the final accounts aren't out till the end of September. They have to be go through FEI and stuff like that. But like that figure, I double checked it with different people in the know, and it's not far off the money. It's certainly 7-figure sums, like and like it's not that long ago we were sitting with a 7-figure sum plus, without, and yeah, look, it's expensive to run a club, and bear in mind we were in Europe last year as well. I don't know where we'd be without that money. But just incredible. Like, it there's a documentary in this in itself of, um, how it's got to this point, and like my fear now is that, like, I do think there might be a bit of news on the horizon, sooner rather than later on the future, but leaving that aside, because no deal is ever done until it's done and across the line. But sitting here tonight, with things up in the air, you'd have to be worried when you factor in that level of debt and potentially going down. But regardless of going down or staying up, will there be a club here? Because this isn't like, you go through the history of Dundalk, and there's been as much trouble as there has been success over the years, but the amounts are bigger. They're harder to come back from, and when you factor in where we were in terms of the money we made from Europe, and like had we just managed to sustain that, like you look at just for the week that's in it, like obviously Shamrock Rovers now in the Europa Conference League playoffs, like aside from the money they've won already, they're getting what, 400 grand for a win. Like phenomenal stuff. Like, and you look at their group and you say, right, well, would you be backing them against Chelsea? Probably not. But like they've Lauren in the group, they've TNS in the group, and listen, that doesn't, like, they still have to go out and win those games, but I don't think they'll be fearing them either. So they're, and we were in that sort of prominent position where, it's a league where, so okay, you've in theory the cup can throw it off, but for many, many years there, it was the top 4 in Europe in a 10-team league. And with our position of strength, even a bad year, you should be qualifying for Europe, like where we were.
Yeah.
But it was built on sand. It was built on absolute sand, and no structures put in below it. And it's sad because I've seen, again, I haven't spent massive amount of time on social media this evening or anything, but I have seen some comments from some fans. I believe we even got one in from Git, I think is a Pats fan, asking, and that was before the article broke about what colour buckets will be in Oriel this time around and stuff like that. But and I get there's rivalry and and stuff like that, but I don't think you should ever take pride in a League of Ireland club getting into financial difficulty, because ultimately, owners are a small, tiny minority, unless you're a Bowes who, most people in Dalymount Park on a Friday night are owners in Bowes, but like in this, you're talking a handful of people who've had the ownership of this club ever, never mind in the last sort of decade, 20 years, whatever. But it's a wider town, it's a wider community. It's, it's still, it's where fathers and sons get together. It's where people connect. It's a bigger thing than just the results on a Friday night or Saturday night or whatever night you play. And to see that in jeopardy, and to see a team like, look, Shamrock Rovers, do people take joy if they maybe lose on any given, listen, and I'm only using them as an example, as they're probably the hated club in the land, but I don't agree with taking joy in any club struggles, because the average fan, slagging and all that, it's not up to the average fan to improve Oriel. It's not up to the average fan to, put structures in place. But we've been let down, like it's a couple of years ago now, we want our club back signs in Oriel, and said at the time, be careful what you wish for, and I'm not saying Peak Six was perfect, it was anything but perfect, but at least your financial security was there. Now it's been an absolute mess, and irresponsible, absolutely irresponsible as well.
Well, we have 2 extra comments as well, as always, brought to you by Malone Financial Services. Simon Canning said, good battling display on Friday, deserved at least a point, but in my opinion, Gullen and Kenny aren't up to it at this level. Let's be honest, who would sign them if they were available? Maybe first division teams would. Don't like cascading anyone, but we do need a striker who can actually score goals. Then Kevin Mullen said, with the story James broke tonight regarding Brian Ainscough having cold feet, are there actually any interested parties? We're an absolute mess off the field since Kenny left the club. And that's just kind of exactly, I suppose, what our conversation has been. And it's very deflating. And again,
but just on that, I would, and this is not to, like, people sometimes, and I get, if you were there, you take it personally or whatever. I've like, we were a mess off the field when Stephen Kenny was there, but his success papered over so many cracks because we were doing absolutely nothing in that time, and that was the time for me more than ever to strike, because the country was coming out of sort of the bleak eras of the the crash. There was so much goodwill, there was so much publicity on the place. There was money there earned from Europe, and ultimately squandered, because where is it now? There's nothing, there's not a statue, there's not a trophy, there's not a, as I say, there's not a new anything really. As I say, we may have put a gym into the YDC, but the YDC has been a relic effectively, because it hasn't been open to the public for a decade, and it has huge potential. As we've seen in the initial stages when Jerry Matthews built it and opened it. Look, Kevin asked there, are there interested parties? There could be news, and there could be news soon. But like any deal, same as when you go for a player, see when it's across the line, because especially deals like this, it could fall apart for any given reason. Something's found in the due diligence, as you mentioned, or they don't like this, they don't like that, they don't like the other. And I don't want to say too much on it, because you don't want to scupper anything potentially, but it definitely needs someone to row in now, and I don't know who that would be or whatever, and like why you'd want to do it necessarily, but it needs some sort of savior, because at the moment it's a club going nowhere really. And as much as the fans on a Friday night are thinking, we obviously play Pats this Thursday, and you're hoping to stay up, and obviously if we win on Thursday night, you're off the bottom and stuff like that. But there's a far bigger battle going on, and that's what I've been sort of rabbiting on about for the last few years, because I could see us sleepwalking into this. It's probably happened a lot quicker than I thought, but for me, the club has never been run right in terms of a business and trying to, break even as best you can. I agree it's very, very difficult with football clubs, but, when's the last big fundraiser we had? When's why have we never, I go through history and stuff for the club. You go back to like newspapers from the 80s and there's car draws, there's cash draws, there's, all these different things were happening down through the years. And they dried up, they stopped, we got complacent. And the fans, I remember Brendan Ogle said it very well around the time of the 1903 being founded, where, we all enjoyed the days out. It was great going up to the Vive every year, and it was great celebrating trophies or whatever, but, we didn't. Now, leadership comes from the top and you need something to get behind as well. I think people will support it, but and we would erase it. It's coming up in a year now, very shortly. It certainly would have been promoted roughly this time last year, where there was a Patrick Hubin tribute night in the town, and a great night first and foremost. But what did it raise that night? Thousands. Now, they seem small amounts when you're dealing with the level of debt we have, but as I say, you have to try and, in any business, you have to try and bring money in. It's why, I even seen you there recently, advertising back to school and stuff like that, and get your appointments in and stuff you have to make an effort. Why do pubs put musicians in to attract people through the doors? Why do pubs have quiz nights, etc., to attract people through the doors?
Now, the club have done bits and bobs. It's funny.
Nothing. It's nothing. What have they done? What have they done? Okay. What have they done? They've opened the doors on a Friday night. It's not good enough. It's never been good enough. And you look around the league, and other clubs are doing everything better than us. Everything better than us, and have been doing everything better than us. We open the doors on a Friday night, and if we don't have a game, leave it at that. It hasn't been good. And listen, I don't want to insult anyone who's putting hard time in there. There's great volunteers, there's great people and stuff like that. But my point being is, I come from an era where, and even go back and look at old copies of the Argus, etc. In a pre-Facebook world and all this, and it was, and Instagram and all that, it was your social scene, where you picked up the paper and it was Lilywhite Lounge, this 30th, 50th. I know there's still events, but it's now lost a lot of that because it hasn't moved to the times. It's not an attractive place to go. Yeah. And places like your Burns of Number 10, your Kennedys, your etc., nicer places have got that business. And that was a massive, massive income to the club. And people think of it, we debated, last week about, should the game have been called off and, the dog be messed around. There's far more people, just from a bar perspective, there's far more people probably going to drink pints on a Sunday afternoon at a Pats game than, say, with a Premier League game on after it on the TV, than maybe a Thursday night when you work the next morning. So even things like that do affect your what you take in on a match night. So look, as I say, look, I'm not trying to throw shade in anything, but we've been sleepwalking into this for a long time, and again, I don't know, it lacks strong leadership, it lacks strong ownership. There has never been a plan to get behind.
Yeah.
Never.
And that's the point I was making as well. They're for the fans.
And not just this year. This has been a long time in the making. And there's an old, the old saying, you make hay when the sun shines. We were at the top of the pile and we pissed it away. And multiple people pissed it away, and multiple ownership groups pissed it away. A few players have done well out of it, and good luck to them. It's a job like anyone else. And listen, if someone wants to offer me treble what I'm on a week to come in and work for them, of course you're not going to turn that down, but there's nothing there to show for a good period. We don't have, you look at Drogheda, and they've been, most of their history has been at a lower level. bar a period maybe in the noughties where again built on sand, but they have plans. They have, and I'm only using them as a reference because they're our nearest neighbours, but they have plans to, build a new, bigger than the same, like a proper little community for themselves. We don't have that. And listen, Oriel Park, like we were discussing the likes of Jim McLaughlin last week. We'll have Dermot Keeley coming back in a couple of weeks, launching his book and stuff. And it's the same place they played in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Like it effectively. Yeah, there's a big unit behind the shed now, but like the ground hasn't changed since August 1966. And that's a long running legacy. And look, there's bigger issues to that, but like as I say, when you don't make effort to bring money in to raise, build your like we are the only club who's haven't seen a post-COVID boost in attendances. That's not something to be proud of.
No.
Anyway, I could go on all day, and I'm probably going to say something I shouldn't because I'm angry by it, like in many ways, like and look, I take no pride in reporting deaths like that. It's worrying. And that's why I've been sort of hard on the club for a long, long time, because you sort of see this coming down the road where if you don't do things, if you don't run it effectively, like where's the structures in place? Where's the the different things? And to be fair, maybe there's been an effort for that this year, but like sometimes these things take longer. And like there's a wider portion of this, like it's people's livelihoods too. Like there's local people employed up there, worrying for them too, but it's a big part of all our lives. Like I listened to a brilliant piece John Murphy did with Adrian Eames. It aired on Sunday Sport. He put it out on his Twitter for anyone who wants to have a listen back to it. But like John, in his 80s, talking about what the club means to him and stuff, and like it'd get you, like in many ways, John Daly could do worse than playing it in the dressing room beforehand. The bit where he's talking about what Dundalk means to him, because it kind of sums up really well what it means to the people of the town and the history of it and that. But that's all at risk now, massively at risk. And as supporters, we've stood still as well. And look, I include myself in that because I'm a class as one of them. But there's been no organised way of like getting a rainy day fund together or anything that can support the club in any way in terms of significant, be it like even if there was plans tomorrow, wouldn't it be lovely as a supporters group you could say, yeah, there's 100 grand to kick you off.
Yeah,
it might be small, and like if something's bigger, but you look at places like Bowes, we mentioned the mono stand, that cost in the region of 100 grand. It's paid for itself already. We don't have that vision, and you're in a situation now where like thankfully the weekend was actually decent. But like Shelbourne, top of the league, or going for a league, having their best season since 06, 45 minutes down the road, you should be selling out your away end. And I have no idea what the away attendance was. It's actually difficult for me to see based on where I sit, how many are there or anything like that. But if it's raining on Friday, you are driving down to get soaked. And look, there's bigger concerns than, and I get different owners would have said to me over the years, well, maybe our attention should be on the home fan first, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, because you should probably cater for the person going every second week as opposed to the person coming twice a year. But it's all, there's little things that there's been no movement on. I get it's a hard ground to do up. I get it's not owned by the club, but it's absolutely stood still. And we had a magnificent sort of decade there of brilliant success, but we didn't build on it. We didn't build on it at all, and all the goodwill that we had. And it's shot now in a lot of places, because look, when you build up debts like that too.
Hard to bring that back.
But they're people, they're businesses, they're, you know, I don't want to go into individuals or individual companies or anything like that, but like you're showering relationships with people in your community. So,
Yeah.
and that's an entity rather than, you know, Brian Ainscough or any one individual. So look, hopefully there's a bit of good news soon, and we can move on and move forward. But it badly needs it. And
But even that again, you know, you're talking about somebody coming in now, like again, without genuinely sitting down and saying this is a plan, people won't buy it until they see it now. Like people won't care now. Oh, right, Ainscough's gone and somebody else is coming in. People are on their knees at this stage going, oh, whatever. Who's this guy? Oh, he's going to be gone in the year. Or he'll say he's going to do this, this, and this. And only time will tell with these things, like anything. Like you can't judge anyone. I understand that too early. But also, people are so deflated with it. So for argument's sake, you say this time next week on the podcast, oh, XYZ has took it over, yada, yada, yada. What about it? What's changing? And again, that's not the right attitude to have because something has to change.
well,
But like still,
if someone comes in, and that's an if, but if someone comes in, you have to give them a chance. Like, what else choice have you got? You have to hear them out, and you have to, yeah, like as supporters, you have to hold them to account in terms of like if they say, well, look, within 12 months we'll have this or we'll have that or we'll have the other. 13 months come, you say, well, where is that? Why has that happened? And there might be a very justifiable reason for it, but again,
and then he just leaves
this is
because like
this
what
is
Brian Ainscough's going to do,
well,
and we're still fucked.
well, you
know,
can't
and
predict.
that's
You can't predict the future.
Yeah,
Look,
I understand that.
someone could come in next week and be here for 30 years. That's you can't listen. If I knew if I knew comings and goings like that, I'd use my powers for the lotto numbers or something. But like, yeah, look, all you can do, and look, it's not ideal. It's far from ideal. Don't get me wrong, but all you can do is give them a chance. In the same way as I think people wanted to give Brian a chance. Look, has he made mistakes? I think he told his hands up. He has, and it's a pity. Like I wanted to do and thought it was going to happen at various points. I wanted to do a piece with him. I wanted to be. Listen, doesn't necessarily. I've said before, it doesn't necessarily have to be me. But I wanted to chat about. Like, there's a variety of topics, a wide ranging conversation you could have.
And he also gets to put his side out there. That's what I just don't understand about it. You can influence that media. You know what I mean? You can say, right, well, blah, blah, blah. And you can look like a lovely fella. And you can look like, and people would have less animosity towards him. Again, silence is deafening in all of these things. And it to be honest, for me, it's the same old shit, you know, and you're like, mother of God. So again, somebody else comes in, happy days. It couldn't be worse, let's be honest. But again, you know, you're not buzzing about this unless honestly this guy comes in and goes, this is that money and that clears that debt, and then we've this, and we're actually looking about redeveloping Oriel with regards, obviously ownership is an issue, so maybe they're talking to the family obviously that own Oriel Park, and maybe they're doing something in that sense. Or we're actually looking at a greenfield site, but you're having proper and also the academy. That's my big thing. I think we've nothing coming through. We've not that we've nothing coming through, but we're not paid coaches, which is my bugbear. Like we need to make sure that there's accountability underneath, and it also means we can develop the best talent and sell them and make money. You know, like it seems like every club. There was some random guy leaving for Belgium and Bose making money off it. You know, like or all this sort of stuff. But we're just not doing any of that. So there's such a big thing. And so if this new guy comes in with genuine ideas, plans, timelines, I'm in because that's what's needed. But other than that, it's the same old story. And again, he has to come in and wipe 1.2 million debt, or you know, and that ain't easy. You know, that ain't easy. And
More.
yeah, well, there you are.
One,
So
1.2 as of last November.
yeah, so
And look, them were like, we'll go through them at the time, I think, in the interest of fairness. But you know, you can't talk about the situation and not mention the debt, because it's like, look, if it was just a case of walk in tomorrow and run it with a zero balance, you know,
that's different.
you'd have far more
Yeah,
takers.
yeah.
Needless to say, you know, but it's like, you know, um,
And
it is
joking
a
aside, if
factor in
this
it.
doesn't come off, then what? Like really, you're going, ooh, right?
Well,
Like,
that's right. Like
yeah,
you'd have, like, you genuinely, like, this is like, listen, I am being speculative here, but like, there's no way we have made money this year, profit, no way. Like, there's still transfer sums owed for the likes of, you know, and this isn't in the 2023 accounts, but like, you know, there's transfer fees owed to clubs for players we paid for this year who haven't played for us in 6 months, and like, that's not money well spent, but it is money we owe and money we're going to have to pay. And like, so therefore, what are, you know, what realistically, like, could we owe 2 million? I don't know right now. If you're talking real life bank account, we could possibly owe that. And that's very, very speculative. I will, but my point being, it's bigger than that. And you know, that, you know, if you go down, if you stay up even, it's very hard to see how that improves next year, unless, yeah, as you say, someone's willing to come in. And you know, you look at Philip O'Doherty at Derry, he's effectively putting 1 million in every year
yeah,
on top of, like,
just
and
to
they
keep things
do,
afloat.
yeah,
Yeah,
they do draws, and they, like, look, they're investing in infrastructure. Well, it's him investing in the infrastructure, and they're, you know, they are decent. Well, they're better crowds than us every week. Again, they're probably more limited by space, but there's more people in the Brandywell on the Friday than there is in Oriel. Now they probably, well, undoubtedly have a bigger wage bill, but they have that sort of person who's willing to do that, and therefore it's never a concern. But
yeah.
who's going to do that? Like I said to someone earlier, I think the Euro Millions was 130 million tonight. It wasn't one, so presume it's 140 million on Friday if anyone wants to give it a go. But if you won it, like, do you want to put it into Dundalk FC?
Mhm.
I don't know. Listen, everyone's different. Everyone's different, but like, great if you do. Like, you look at, like, look, Pats are coming to town on Thursday. Like, John Daly must look at it a bit like you know, the ex who got their shit together, because all of a sudden there's money there to go out and buy top players.
Well,
And
Pats are a perfect example of what we were. We had money, but everything behind the show was a mess. You look at Richmond, you look at things
but
like
they've
that.
been
They
they've
don't have
made
a training.
improvements.
They don't what like comparatively like
Well, they've
I,
improved. They've massively increased their attendances, and they've built into the
yes.
community. They've built into the community. So they've without actually, okay, they've won a cup or whatever, but in terms of, they haven't had league success, and I know they had brilliant run in Europe last week or whatever, but like, it's not like they've had a European run in terms of group stages or a glamour tie or anything like that. But what they've done, they've massively increased their fan base. They've brought in, like, young fans as well, to the extent that, like, they're a bigger club than what they were. Like, it's ironically, I was looking back on it this Thursday. It's exactly a decade since we went up and played them, and Christy Fagan scored a winner in a game up there when they were title holders and we were going for the title. And like, the attendances from then to now probably trebled in a decade, and that's progress. Whereas, like, we, if
Well,
anything,
infrastructurally, it's a mess. So that's sorry. That's
yeah,
that.
but they have tried. Like, you know, we've at least seen
Yeah,
and
yeah,
listen,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
planning permissions and all that. But he's tried. Do you remember the plans for he wanted to build a
Shopping
shopping
centre.
centre with
Yeah.
the pitch, and they're training in Abbottstown, which, look, it's not theirs. But if
I
you're
wonder
a
what that
player,
link was.
no, but if you're a player, and you're saying, I'm going to train in Abbottstown, like,
Mm.
because ultimately, like, listen, having a nice stadium is wonderful and all that, but like, say you're like, let's look at Premier League a minute. Like you're only actually in Anfield every second week or whatever. Your day to day is actually somewhere else, and having a nice training facility is lovely. And listen, I've been to Abbottstown, and like the pitches are immaculate, and like why wouldn't you want to train there, play football there every day? So that's, look, they don't own it, I know, and whatever, but it's a great facility. It's a fantastic facility. So, like go up and look at Roadstone if you ever get an opportunity up, where Shamrock Rovers train. It's incredible. Like, they have an artificial pitch up there, sprinklers and all, and we don't have that in Oriel. It's our main pitch. So like there's been not even in that, there hasn't even been an investment in that. Like, I don't know much a sprinkler system would be under the Oriel Park surface, but go back to the Stephen Kenny days when we were playing free flowing football, and he was a stickler for pitch can't be dry and all that. That in theory that would have been a better investment than some of the signings we made, because it's longer lasting and it'll help you week to week. But look, you could go around in circles on it, why we got here. I think the more important thing is that, and look, we can't control it, but I think we need to get out of it, because, as I say, it's the very future survival of the club. But like I say, you see, like Bows, for example, Bows beat Rovers obviously at the weekend. Bad result for us in many ways if you're hoping to catch them. But I think that was their second win in 16 or something like that. It's like ridiculously, they still have the worst home record in the Premier Division, despite that result. And yet they're packing out Dalymount every week. So it becomes, and it's not like Bows have been winning titles or anything like that, but they've built something. They've built like this. I don't know what the word community or whatever, like the Dog is a community in theory, but they've built something that people want to be part of, that people go to, like there's literally scrambles for tickets. And I know, look, you're dealing with a bigger area in terms of Dublin or whatever else, but they've sort of made it cool. They've made it hip in a dilapidated ground that's fallen down around them. We haven't seen that from us.
Well, on a positive note, we'll move on to the football. But before we do discuss their defeat to Shells and Thursday's visit to Pats, we'll hear quickly from our sponsor, The Unit.
Today's episode is powered by The Unit, experts in building innovative products for the betting, iGaming, and sports industries. They're the brains behind building innovative products tailored for those who love the game as much as we do. From software that powers up the betting world to platforms that enhance how we engage with our favourite sports, The Unit is leading the charge. The Unit, a winning team that reminds me of the Kenny era Dundalk in their consistency and results. Proud sponsors of the Press Box podcast. Learn more at theunit.dev.
Right, so I would say we're about 500 hours into this podcast, so apologies to any fans that are probably still listening. But again, beaten by Shells, again, top of the table team, probably no shame in it in the sense of when you look at the two teams. Again, funny enough, Aidan O'Brien scored. You see these things, a signing that you bring in that can just get goals, kind of like your man Murphy and Drogheda. It's a huge difference. But ultimately, not Murphy, what's his name? Taylor,
yeah.
He has three names. What's his
Douglas James Taylor.
Oh, Jameson. Okay. What is it, Murphy? Okay. Anyway, we all knew who I was talking about. Again, guys that can score goals, and it's that's the difference. But also the difference is that this keeper is potentially, more than potentially, probably going to get us relegated. Now, I don't know what John Daly does, because again, you could say, like, if we put somebody else in goals, this could be our 15th goalkeeper of the year or something, because something's not. But like, as we were saying earlier, or the other day, even after the game, Goddard's concession of that goal is just a lack of bollocks, a lack of desire to go win that. That sort of goal is the sort of desperate stuff that I see on a week-to-week basis in the DDL in Dundalk. That is not good enough. There's no desire. There's no, want to make sure that that ball is just in your hands and you're in control here. It's pathetic to give away. I don't know who it was in the questions referencing our strikers. At times, yeah, you're not taking chances, but you're not taking chances all year. So you have to genuinely question levels. So like Kenny and Gullen run around all the time and all, but what are they doing? Where's your facts and figures? Like, has Owen Kenny like actually scored a league goal this year?
No.
What's Gullen got? 2 or 3?
5.
And some are from dead ball scenarios, which is brilliant.
All bar one.
Okay, all bar one. So we're not scoring. So again, God almighty, I don't know what else to say. But like, I just don't like. At times, like you want to say, right, well, here we are. We can, Pats. Maybe we'll get something. Blah blah blah. We just need to be better. We just need to be better. Like you can't give away goals like that. And when chances come, we need to be positive and of a higher level that you just take chances. If like, as you know yourself, we've created like Ryan O'Kane had a great chance, and that's unlucky to give him his due. But like, we're not scoring, and we're conceding abysmal goals. Like I actually can't believe how much got away with that goal in regarding social media, general media the other day. Like, that's shocking to give away. And again, that cost us 3 points. Bang. Even a point there. He doesn't do that, and we get a point even. I know it's goal difference or whatever, wherever we'd still be bottom or not, but like, we're level them with Drogheda. It's a point, and it's a point against league leaders, but just same old. So like, it's, you look.
Now, just not defending him here or whatever, just giving you a bit of context. So we obviously spoke to John Daly after, and he was asked about the goal. He felt the mistake was with Sean Keogh, because Ali Kuta got in behind him 2 minutes earlier. We definitely didn't learn the lesson. I'd agree with him on that. And then Coote gets in behind Keogh again. Now, listen, he did. Can't deny that. But there's a yellow streak in us, unfortunately, where I think that's bravery. I think if that's at the other end, Conor Cairns dives at it, smothers it. It's chance gone.
Yeah.
He kind of pulls out of it halfway and whatever. And listen, you could argue should Aidan O'Brien have got there first, but he did, and he finished it. But it was again very, very, very preventable. And like, there's some players battling really, really hard for us. Like, I thought Air Devon was very, very good the other night, and if we could instill his heart and a few more players, would be brilliant. But like, the strikers, it's just frustrating now. Like, I like Jamie Gullen, and I really want it to happen for him, but like, he's actually, like, he's built up, like, big broad shoulders. He's built to be a target man. He's built to hold the ball up. He's everything going from physically and attribute wise, and he's spent half the season rolling around on the ground looking for frees that he's not getting. And he's like the boy who cried wolf now, I feel, because every referee, like, there's probably some he deserves, don't get me wrong, but the play acting is kind of gone over the top to the extent now that he's not getting the decisions, and he just needs to, I don't know, man up, for want of a better term. Like, we talk about, like, look, Owen Kenny in his defence is a young teenager starting out, and any teenager comes in is probably at a crux of, like, are you going to kick on and develop into a first team player, or are you going to disappear and be playing NEFL in a couple of years? I hope it's the former for him, but like, this is a guy, he's 25 now, he's played in the SPL, like, it's a rough and tumble league, that, like, we can't help but compare ourselves to Drogheda, and they've two absolute battering rams up top.
Mm.
You know, he has that ability in terms of I look at him and he's a man. There's no doubt about it, but he's not playing like that. And I don't want to get into individual things, but you have to call out what you see.
Mm.
And it's not good enough. And like you talk about, like that was our 14th game in Oriel the other night. It's our 10th that we haven't scored in. We've only scored in 4 matches this season. 4 of them came against Drogheda in the 4-2 in July. And you wonder why we
wonder why we're where we are. Like, I'm sorry. Now we're well into this game, as I said. With 8 left.
And like, I don't want to be completely harsh, because I did think there was I thought second half in particular we pushed, like, I know what you're saying, and it is the same old story every week, but like we are just missing maybe that bit of luck where Kenny had his chance with the lob, Mahan had a good shot saved by Cairns, Kane hit the post where he couldn't have hit it much sweeter, to be fair to him, but they're just not dropping, and like our problem is, like, when you look at it, so we haven't scored first in a lot of games, but we scored first in 7 games this season, and we're undefeated. We won 5 and drew 2. So the first goal is absolutely vital for us. Whereas when we go behind, we've gone behind in 16 games this season, and we've taken 2 points from those 16 matches where we came back against Bows away and Sligo away. We haven't come back once at home this season to get anything from a game. And ultimately, yeah, we're not a big enough threat, but when you're giving up sloppy goals, it's unforgivable. Like, I don't know. You try and talk up the Pats thing. I don't know what to say. Like, look, they've actually a dire record in Oriel. Doesn't matter. So had Shells. So had Shells. They hadn't won there since 2012, but they beat us at the weekend.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to say from it, because again, Pat's away form has been dire this season. They've only won once all season, opening day away to Galway, away from home. They've only scored 9 goals outside of Richmond. It's been dire, but it doesn't matter, because can we take advantage of it? And I really want to believe, I really want to stay positive, and it's very, very hard to at times, because like, I did see positives in the Derry game. I did see positive in the Shells game, but ultimately, and you've been saying it for a long time. Yeah, and it is a bit like that. And I think this is an absolutely crucial one, because it's our game in hand. If we win it, we move off the bottom. But it's very hard to have confidence in us winning it when we can't score goals. It's the simplest thing, in like, it's an old cliche, but it's a true cliche. If you don't score goals, you don't win games, and we just don't look like scoring goals. We're probably a bit unlucky at times. I was a bit frustrated the other night. Like, I felt maybe we needed something different, and I was saying, like, I'd even thrown my O up top for the last 10 or something, because, like, Paddy Barrett was, again, very, very, very good for Shells, but he didn't have to. He was just heading everything clear, dealing with everything to come into the box, and we didn't try and mix it up. Josh O'Connor on the bench, not used.
What's going on there? What is that about? Like,
well, like, I did ask John about, like, was he tempted to? I actually literally
was he
asked
tempted to
him about
play the fucking striker that we signed when we're down?
Well, his answer was he thought we had momentum, and look, hindsight's a great thing, and maybe we should have, but he thought the momentum was with us, and maybe changing it would disrupt that. But yeah, we were playing well, and we were pressing hard, and like, there's like, I don't want it to be all night. Like, there was some lads really busting a gut for the team the other night. Don't get me wrong, but ultimately we need to put the ball in the net, and we're not doing it. Like, we've 2 lads up front here, and I'm not trying to pick on them, but like, this is like in any side, your strikers are the ones you look for mainly for goals, and neither of them have scored a league goal at Oriel this season. So, like, to be fair to Owen Kenny, I think it was his 4th start of the season, and not all them would have been at Oriel. Like, he's living on few minutes, but it's not an ideal situation to be in this close to the end. You know, we don't have that many home matches left, and like even John Daly scoffed at the idea that we've a good home record. We don't. We've the second worst home record in the league in terms of points gained. You know, and he said himself, like, people confuse an 8-game run where you didn't concede with good home form, but like not a lot of wins in them.
Yeah.
And this ultimately goes back to, you know, like this time last year where you're deciding, you know, we'll get rid of our all-time leading goal scorer. Because, listen, I'm not saying we'd be brilliant this year or whatever, but you'd have to back Hoban to have got 1 or 2 in those matches to turn a 0-0 into a 1-0.
Mm.
And maybe that's the difference of staying up. Maybe that's the difference of having more confidence in other matches to, you know, to get results, to get assists. As I mentioned last year when we were bidding farewell to him, like the number of assists he made, the way he brought others into play. We haven't got that this year. And, you know, it could be a detrimental one, really, to us, because like it's getting harder and harder, and I feel sorry for the fans. I've seen a few supporters today sort of trying to build up, you know, let's get a big crowd going for Thursday and let's get an atmosphere, and fair play to them, but you can understand why it's harder and harder for fans to get up for it as well, because they're seeing the same thing week in, week out, and it's you know, and the frustrating thing is, like, really, that there's not a team blowing you away. Like, Shelbourne are probably going to win the league. You know, certainly after Derry's cock up on Friday as well. They're if they weren't favourites before, they certainly are now. They have their game in hand on Friday, so they could be, by the end of the weekend with only 2 matches on, they could be 6 points clear. And they've only lost 4 all season, so like they're probably going to win the league. But like, looking at them the other night, it wasn't like they were worlds apart, better than us or anything like that. But they have a functionality that we don't. They don't give up things sloppy. They don't give much away. Don't score many either, but they get the job done.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
This has been bleak. This has been absolutely sorry. I do apologize, because and you're trying to be positive, and it's very, very hard, because I if anyone can tell me where I actually wrote it in my column this week, you know, if you have a better chance of getting an Oasis ticket at the weekend or seeing it in the Dundalk goal, like, and I'm not trying to be, you know, it's not a funny matter, but it is. It's so disheartening at times, and like, you're trying to, like, I'm really trying to be positive, and I really hope that, you know, I've been waiting for something to click for a long time. It's just not. And listen, hopefully I'm wrong and it comes on Thursday, but like, at some point, you know, you can be unlucky at times, but like, this is just it's a long trend now. You know, sometimes it's just your standard.
Yeah.
And
it is for us, sadly.
And look, if you can beat Pats, at least it's in your hand, and you get a lift from it, and you're going to a Waterford side. And, like, I'm not like, but it is. But like ultimately, we need to score goals, and the other thing is, Pats have been one of the few times teams we've actually ripped apart in many ways. Got 3 against them in like 20 minutes or something.
They've signed well, and Stephen's probably a few months in now and building in that sense, and he obviously gave Drogheda a pumping as well. And so again, I don't know, but they're scoring. Was it 4-1, 5-1, or whatever the other day? Like,
4-1, yeah. Now there was a red card earlier now for Drogheda as well, but
so it's worrying to see that they're scoring. Like, again, if they were kind of hitting nil-alls one day, you'd be like, oh, we hit you. But if some of them signings have been outstanding, to be fair. And you're right, John Daly would be a bit sick to see some of them coming in. But anyway, I suppose on other news, the 1903 are holding a music bingo fundraising event in the Lisdoo on October 12th. The doors are going to open at 7:30, and tickets are 20 quid or 190 for a table of 10 people. And all proceeds are going to go towards supporter-based projects around Oriel Park. Before we go, also, yeah, we're just the underage stuff with Jerry McNamee Consultants. I'll put you out of your misery today. On Saturday, the men's under-20s had a superb 3-2 win away to Finn Harps, with Fionn McNamara opening the score before Mohammed Harris added the double. The women's 17s also had a good win in the Northwest as they won 4-1 away to Sligo Rovers, with Ciara Brady scoring the opening 2 goals before they were added to by Sarah Burke and Mina McConnell. Unfortunately, the men's 15s lost 2-1 away to Pats in the Michael Hayes Cup, with Shay Savage's late strike proving to be just a consolation. On Sunday, the women's 19s lost 2-1 away to Galway United, with Eliza Valenzuela getting the goal for Jason McConville's side, with the men's 17s losing 3-0 at home to Drogheda. This Saturday, the men's 20s host at Lone Town at Oriel Park at 1:30, and on Sunday, the men's 17s and men's 14s are both away to Longford Town at 3:30 and 1 p.m. respectively. So I don't know if we are 14 hours in, but we are going to wrap it up here.
Certainly feels like
this week. Yeah. If you're still listening, we appreciate it, and we hope we did come across with some points and stuff. As I said, especially with the ownership model, the genuine form. It's a tough season all around for us. Again, I suppose from our point of view, we want to thank our main sponsors, the unit, as well as our associate sponsors, Player Fit, Jerry McNamee Consultants, and Malone Financial Services. As always, we are going to put this out on YouTube, and we want to thank Jason and Mullins on the Castledown Road for sponsoring that, so you can like and subscribe to that as well. Again, playing Pats on Thursday. Hopefully we get a good result, and hopefully we can talk more maybe about ownership and potentially looking up rather than down on the table. We'll talk to you next week.
Look how the stars turn on. Look how the stars turn